Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bro to Pro. We are still working on the car. Today there is some special gravity. I'm going to continue stitch welding the passenger compartment. I'm not going to work on the rear or front of the car yet. I just want to kind of finish up the interior. That way I can start getting stuff situated, do like brake lines and stuff like that. One thing I did notice with the car was I actually had fuel lines kind of passing through here, and I don't want to be welding with fuel lines there. There's no fuel left in it, but even if there was, I don't want to melt a perfectly good fuel line. Same thing with the water lines. That I'm kind of past, and I'm replacing those, but still want to get those out of the way. So what I did was I went ahead and pulled out both the feed and return lines. I will most likely be using the same size return line. That's a -6 AN. And I will probably go into a -10 or a -8 feed line since I'm going to be running a little bit more fuel. I don't want to have any restrictions with that fuel line situation. I was able to finish up pulling out all this sound deadening out there. So I would say the car is about 99% removed of sound deadening and seam sealer. There's still some in there. I noticed some even when I'm welding. There's seam sealer burning up, but I'm just not going to remove all that. The back end, there's no sound deadening in there anymore, no seam sealer. We're going to stitch weld in there a little bit, not too much. There's some seam sealer over here, but that's going to be kind of where firewall is. I don't think we need to worry about getting in there. It'll be a significant amount of time to get in there and clean that all out, and that is a minute amount of weight, and it's not in the rules to have to remove the seam sealer. It's mainly just sound deadening. The main reason I'm trying to clean all this up first and get it all done is because we have a lot of exposed steel here, and we're in Florida. Luckily it's winter right now ish. It's like 70 degrees, 75 degrees right now. But when it gets humid later on in the year, you get all this moisture, and I don't want that to turn into rust. So I'm trying to get it all sealed, it all welded up, and then painted as fast as possible. That way I can seal it all in, don't have to worry about rust, don't have to worry about cleaning it again. I'll probably go over it with a Brillo pad again before I paint everything. I went ahead and began work on the front side of the car. What I did was removed all the fuel line and accessories up there. Here is all the brake and clutch, all that is all removed. I started to remove like all these little like plastic tabs and everything in there. There's not going to be much work. Brake lines in and out, and water lines in and out, and the ECU harness in and out, and that'll be the only thing. So I'm going to seal as much of it off as I can. I'm going to stitch weld along here like I said in the earlier video, and then I'm just going to repaint the engine bay, most likely gray. I'm going to call that business gray, and that's because you can see any sort of fluid that is dropped or sprayed or anything, so it's a lot easier to spot leaks. It's a lot easier to spot failures in a line or a motor before it becomes a huge issue, and especially before it becomes a fire hazard. I'm pretty much done stitch welding the passenger side interior portion of this. All I have left to do is fill this panel here, which I actually cut out. This is a piece of Marco's car, actually, if you notice the nice paint, and I just welded it in. That hole was the same one used here when the guy before me, I think he was going to do a rear mount radiator, but he never did, or he had one and took it out. I didn't see any evidence of one in the back there unless it was kind of like zip tied in. That hole there, heat was coming in because header passed straight by, melted my mom's shoes, melted a lot of people's shoes actually. So patching up this hole, I cut a nice little sheet of steel to go right in there. I'm going to clean up these edges. Trim off this corner here. That'll fit a little bit nicer. Much better. The piece is in here and I tacked it in place, and what I did is I used a hammer here and tapped it so it followed the contour of this so it sits all flush. So now that's all tacked in. Try and seam weld it, but I'll probably just end up stitching it because it won't really need that much sealing. Ended up just tacking it real close up here, so I just did a bunch of little tacks, probably about every half an inch, 3/4 of an inch. It's in there. it works. Next up, I'm gonna finish up stitch welding all up here, and then up on the driver's side up there. This side will be a little bit easier. I cleaned out seam sealer a little better on this side, so it shouldn't cause too much flamage up. All right, passenger side and driver side stitch welding is done. It all up along the transmission tunnel. You can see it all over there, pretty evenly spaced. Did some back here on this firewall. You can see it's still smoking out of there. But I would say the interior for the driver's cabin is pretty much all stitch welded. I don't have much to do in the back. I'm gonna go do the front now. Starting to get tired. Long day. So after that last clip about stitch welding, that was actually about 4 days ago. So I went home, turns out I had the flu. So I was pretty much bedridden for the past 3 days. Today is the 4th day. So I'm actually feeling a lot better now. Got over it pretty quick, had a lot of rest. So I'm gonna get back into it. I'm actually just gonna do a couple hours on the car because I just need to do something because I missed a bunch of days, but I don't wanna do too strenuous on myself. I'm just gonna start prepping this up here. I listened to you guys in the comments. I'm gonna prep my areas for welding a lot better, and I'm gonna try and fine tune adjustments and everything just to get my weld beads a little bit more consistent, and mainly just clean up where I'm gonna do. And like you guys said, prep work is everything. Gonna start grinding, gonna wear some respirator masks because I really don't wanna get sick again. That just takes a lot out of my day. What I wanna do before starting to grind all this stuff away is get all these like open lines either closed up or taken away. So like this oil filter, relocation, thermostat, and oil filter block, all those lines are exposed. I'm gonna take this off. Luckily, I made a little bracket here, so it's just two 10mm bolts. So all I have to do is take these off and this entire system gets removed. So this right here is my improved racing oil filter relocation bracket. So what this is it has a thermostat built into it. So I get my motor oil from the motor and then back to the motor. And if it's not hot enough, it reroutes it, goes straight back to the motor. If it's hot enough, it routes to the oil cooler, which cools the oil and then filters back in the motor. And the thermostat regulates that. That way I can keep the oil at an optimal temperature. Not too cold, but when it starts getting hot, it cools it down. And then what I have here is an oil temperature sensor, so I can monitor the oil temperature coming straight out of the motor, which went straight to my digital dash, which will now be going straight to my ECU, which will be displayed, and then I can make sure that my warm procedure is correct in the motor to optimize for oil temperature and coolant temperature. Quick note to self, make sure that all the oil is out of the lines before you pick up the oil cooler. Oh God, oh no. Oh God, Marco's gonna be mad at me. Sorry, Marco. Problem solved. I just hooked all 4 lines back up. So now, oil can't go anywhere. Gotta get these radiator lines out of the way here. So interesting thing I did with this is these are actually conduit clamps. So you can get these from Home Depot in packs of like 100, 200 for like 15 bucks. And what I did was I just put them 2 together like this, and it perfectly holds my radiator lines all the way back for super cheap option. And then I just put a rivet nut in there and did a little Allen key bolt in there, and it holds them perfectly good. Cheap option, don't have to make crazy brackets. Simple, easy to do. Here it is right here. Just tacked one side so it holds it together. Perfect clamp, single bolt hole in the middle, single stainless Allen key, all ready to go. Lines are all out of the way, so now I'm gonna remove the catch can and the fuel pressure regulator. This catch can was like an eBay catch can. It was like 60, 70 bucks. Main reason I wanted it, it was decent size, and I had 2 AN10 fittings that went straight to my motor, and then a Petcock drain valve at the bottom with actually a drainage hole right here, so I could drain straight out the chassis there, and easily accessible so I can remove it. That was easier. Word of advice, if you're gonna build something, make it so that if it's a part that can easily fail or may need to be replaced, such as a fuel pressure regulator, make it so it's easily accessible, especially with everything in the car and most of the lines attached. Build it once, build it right, but make it serviceable. That's all stuff's out of the way. Last thing I had was these power steering lines. I'm just gonna leave the power steering rack and everything all in, and then I just tucked the lines in one of these access holes that I'll be welding up. These are actually holes for the heater core for your heat going into the car, which will be all sealed up because we don't have heat in the car anymore, but it will be pretty damn hot in there. Motor and exhaust and everything going through, no sound ending, no carpet, no insulation. God, I need a cool suit. This Florida heat's killing. Back to the old grind. Listen to you guys, prepped all this, got it all down to bare metal. So here are the areas that I'll be welding. This area basically around the top hat up there, and then down here along these two seams, and then I think that should be good. I'm sure I can do more, but I don't think it's really necessary when I'm going to be doing tube front and everything. That'll help stiffen it up a little bit. I think anything more than that will be overkill, especially for my power level and everything, you know, since we're going to be pushing at around 650, 700 horsepower estimate. That's kind of my goal. And I know I said on Twitter, I posted a picture of this motor is actually for a different project. We are still going with the V8. Sorry for misleading you guys, but the JZ will be going in something cool in the future. Now that everything's set up, ready to go, ground's on, welder's set up, gas is on, got my trusty welding shirt on because fun fact, which I did not know when I started welding, is you can get sunburnt from welding. I think some people, but as a ginger, I got sunburnt from welding. And I had a nice farmer's tan the next day and was wondering why I was sore when I was inside the entire time. Found out, welding does it. Didn't know that, now I do. Side is all done, it's all stitched up. Even did back here. One thing I did notice is up here, there was still some seam sealer in there. So when it got hot, it like bubbled. And when it bubbled, it like blew out through the weld. So that weld is like kind of bubbly. So I had to go back in and kind of like fill it. Not the best one, but all the other ones were pretty decent all through there. Only took probably like 20-30 minutes to clean up this side and then weld it. Next side's gonna be this one over here, obviously. One thing I totally forgot about the Flu was that you get like killer just like joint pain. Just all your joints just hurt for no reason, just like an achy. And just leaning over and doing that for 20-30 minutes, my back is killing me. Even though I've been sitting in bed for 3 days, oh my gosh, it's wild. It's like shoulders and back are just super tight and sore. So we're just going to do that side and we'll probably call it a day after that because I don't want to stress myself too much, but it's good progress on it. So, you know, I can jump into next week with really starting to get the chassis pretty much buttoned up and done so we can start adding stuff finally, even though I keep saying that. Passenger side done, driver's side done. This side was actually a little bit quicker since I already knew what I was doing. So front is all stitch welded up. All I got to do is just seal off those firewall holes for small stuff. But other than that, front's done. Next thing is going to be the rear, which should actually be a little bit more simple than the front here since not as many seams, not as much as I want to do. So that'll be it for this video. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, everything. Thank you for keeping up with this build. I know it's not much of a fun portion for this. We're not doing crazy stuff on it now. It's just chassis prep, but this is what it takes for me to build this car. And if you know you're along for the journey, you're going to see this thing as is. You're going to see this thing shredding in OSW at the end of May, and I'm really excited to just get this thing together. And it's going to be a long journey. It's going to be a lot of hours. It's going to be a lot of work, but we're putting it in. We're doing it all, and we're doing it all ourselves and with the help of friends. So that's what really matters. So thanks again. Peace.